Hi, folks, and welcome to the Be the Ultimate podcast. I'm Dennis Guzik, the old jarhead. Thank you for joining me once again. So, here's the situation. It's an employee market now. Unemployment is real low, and everywhere you go, there are help wanted signs out. Employers are trying to retain the talent they have and even hire more. So what does this mean for you? Let's say you're in a job you like, in a company you like, with coworkers you get along with, and maybe even like. You don't really want to jump ship, but maybe if you did, you could get a little bump up in your salary. Wouldn't that be nice? Especially with the inflation that we see right now. If you don't get a raise soon, your purchasing power is actually going to be lower than last year. So this might be a time to ask for a raise. So after thinking it over, you decide now would be a good time. How do you do that? What's the best chance of succeeding? You may even be able to get a little more than you thought possible. If this is where you find yourself now, or will be in the future, continue listening. Based on my 19 years in the consulting industry and having asked for and received multiple raises, and as a manager, having been asked for raises by a lot of people with varying levels of success, I'm going to discuss a couple of things that I think you should do to be more successful. I'll provide you these tips from both an employee and a manager's perspective. But first, a little detour. I'm discussing salary, but it's really about total compensation. Sure, salary is the main component of total compensation, at least until you get into those stratospheric levels of management. But you also need to consider other forms of compensation, such as retirement benefits, healthcare programs, and how much paid time off is offered. But for now, let's just focus on salary, and maybe later I'll do a podcast on total compensation. So back to asking for a raise. One of the first considerations is whether your company has a cyclical salary adjustment time. Many companies do performance reviews annually, followed by a salary review. If your company does that, then you need to look at where you are with regard to that cycle. If the salary review is within the next month or two, most of the time the company will want to wait until that time to entertain your request. You'd need to make a pretty strong case if you want them to speed it up, especially if that means giving you a raise before your performance review. On the other side of that, if you've just passed the salary review time and you did receive a raise, then most of the time the company will not want to give you another one unless something very significant and unexpected took place, since they'll feel that they already took your performance, the market, and their financial situation into account with your recent raise. But let's say you're around the midpoint of the salary review cycle, or that your company does not do regular salary reviews. You see prices going up all around you. You don't want to leave your company. You like your job. So how should you approach asking for a raise? First, if you don't ask for a raise, it's important that you understand management's position. If you don't and ask for something that puts them in a bind, you have less chance of getting that deserved raise. From my management perspective, there are a couple things to consider. First, of course, is can I afford to give this person a raise? If you're supporting an existing contract that was based on your old salary and the manager can't renegotiate that contract, then by giving you a raise, it either makes that contract less profitable or it could actually go into the loss category. Not a good thing. The second thing that managers have to consider is fairness. Good managers need to look at what others do in the same work as you and see if giving you a raise causes a disparity between you and your coworkers. Whether people disclose their salary to their coworkers or not is not the issue. No matter, fairness is a good objective. If people doing the same job get significantly different salaries, it has to be due to documented performance differences. This prevents a salary disparity simply based on one person being the squeaky wheel while the other quietly goes about their job. Neither of these two considerations has to prevent a manager from giving a raise, as there are workarounds for both. But the more you are aware of management's responsibility to the company and other employees, the more you can work with that information in your request, the better chance you will have of getting a raise. Okay, So you're going in to ask for that raise, right? And you know you've got management's constraints in mind. Let's take a look at the strategic level. You want to make this a win-win situation. Don't approach this with an adversarial point of view. When an employee asks for a raise, the manager, especially in these times, this employee market I mentioned earlier, knows that if he turns you down, then there's some chance that you'll leave, that you're going to resign and go get another job. So there's no need to make that threat. Don't go in there and saying, boss, I want a raise, and if you don't give it to me, I'm out of here. It just makes the ensuing conversation more challenging. The win-win situation you're trying to achieve is that you get a salary increase and the manager gets a more motivated and loyal employee. So to do that, here are some tips. Make it a one-on-one conversation with your boss. Asking for a raise should not be in a group setting. That may seem obvious, but okay, seen it. Be reasonable with your request. Your existing salary that you accepted at one point as a good salary is the starting point. But unless you can point to something extraordinary in your situation, asking for a huge jump just makes the managers think that you don't understand their situation and they're just shooting for the stars. In my experience, anything over 10 to 20% above inflation is asking for a lot. By the same token, anything below inflation won't make you whole with regard to your buying power. So that could be your floor. When thinking about salaries, using things like school and online databases of salaries is, in my experience, problematic. Why? Because those databases rely on people voluntarily providing their salary information, and those people tend to be those that have gotten what they think are good salaries. So that data tends to skew high. Many companies subscribe to services that collect actual salaries from those subscribing companies, so they tend to have a better idea of what are typical salaries in your position, in your industry, in your geographical area. Once you have an idea of what you want, then you need to craft your argument. There are two things that'll increase your chance of getting a raise. First, make it about the company, not about you. You want to tell them what great things you are doing for the company, how your performance is stellar, and what great plans you have to help the company going forward. Again, you don't need to let them know how great you are and that you'll have an easy time getting another job. They'll figure that out. Second, have as much documented and factual evidence as possible. Your stellar performance reviews are just a start. Some things may not be taken into account in your performance reviews, and some don't even do them. But if you can point out examples of your success, such as a great presentation, finishing a task ahead of time and within budget, and maybe praises you receive, then you're much more likely to get management's nod. But let's say that your boss is concerned that giving you a raise will result in less profit on the contract. So they're hemming and hawing about that. Management needs to consider how much time and effort and cost it'll be to hire your replacement and the lost revenue you would have generated during that time. You can also tell them that you're willing to work on another contract if that helps the situation. The fairness issue that I raised earlier, one that management has to deal with, and there's nothing you need to do about that to increase your chance of a successful raise. This is what managers get paid to do. So, let's say you do what I just recommended. You've done your homework. You know what raise you think would be reasonable and make you feel better about your compensation. You met your boss, had a good conversation, and now you have a raise. My advice to you is enjoy your raise, but do not share it with others. Although there is nothing management can do to prevent people from sharing that information, in my experience, nothing good comes from it. It causes friction within the workplace. And one reason for that friction is people often lie about their salary. So tell your family, enjoy the raise, and get back to work. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about a branch of what we've been discussing. Let's just say you got an offer from another company and that salary is higher than what you make right now. Do you go into your boss with that information and use that to ask for a raise? Having been put in this position as a manager several times, here is what I think. First, are you a good employee? Someone whose work is stellar that I would want to keep and would be hard to replace? If so, then I appreciate the ability to keep you on board. I appreciate that you came in and told me this rather than just leaving the company. And now we could start a conversation as to what it would take to keep you. I would thank you for this opportunity, at least this time. If you come back a couple months later and try this again, then I'm going to believe that you're just shopping your resume around for offers and a raise. And I don't know that I'll continue playing this game. So thank you for what you've done for the company and wish you well at the new job. Now, if you're not a stellar employee, that would not be hard to replace, then I'm going to be less inclined to give you more money. I also know that you may be playing me, so if I give you a raise, you can leverage that with another company. Get a better offer and then leave anyway. The lesson here is to be a stellar, hard-to-replace employee. So, let me end this rambling old jarhead's thoughts here with one final thought. Managers, you need to compensate people as much as you can within the constraints of the business and fairness to others if you want to retain the talent that your business runs on. How you get that job done is your call. That's why you get paid the big bucks. So, that's it. Here are some key takeaways. This could be a good time to ask for a raise, and you may need it with the way inflation is. Understand your company's constraints and make your request reasonable. Make the request about the company and base it on the good things you will do for them in the future. So that's it. Thanks for listening. If you found this useful, please subscribe, tell your friends, and listen next week when I ramble on some other topic I haven't decided yet. Bye.